Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Is the seat supposed to be forward-facing or rear-facing? Did they move to a booster seat too soon? It may be too late to check when you're on the road. Fortunately, you're on the couch. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Don't think you know. Know you know.
The views and opinions expressed by the individuals in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Metaphor Creative Media, its parent, or its affiliates.
As police officers, we're witness to some of the most amazing things in life. Some comical, some horrendous, and some just plain miraculous. When asked why you went into law enforcement, most officers will tell you, because it's like having a front row seat to the greatest show on earth. Today, we saved you a front row seat. This is Cobservations.
From Broadcast Beat Studios in Oakland Park, Florida, Metaphor Creative Media presents a show that gives you a personal glimpse of what law enforcement officers see and do in their typical and not so typical day of work. From walking the beat to detective, Rob has 35 years of law enforcement experience. Although the staff are all active or former law enforcement, any views, opinions, and all other show content are in no way official views, statements, or policies of any law enforcement agency. To talk to our hosts, call the podcast studio at area code 954-210-5413. That's 954-210-5413.
Hello again, and welcome to Cobservations, your front row seat to the greatest show on earth. I'm Rob, your host. We broadcast live every Thursday night at 7 p.m. from the Broadcast Beat Studios located in Oakland Park, Florida. If you have a question, comment, or a story you'd like to share, you can join in on the conversation by giving the podcast studio a call on our new toll-free number at 888-511-COPS. Here on Cobservations, we attempt to give you a personal glimpse of what law enforcement officers do on a daily basis. We'll also talk about recent events, happenings, and the latest hot topics pertaining to law enforcement that not only affects officers, but you, the general public, as well. Last week, my guest Fred and I touched on the horror and heartache caused by active shooters. Tonight, we're going to continue the conversation and offer some suggestions of what you might do should you find yourself in such a situation. What we're going to suggest is just a suggestion. Okay, what you do at the time is you're going to have to decide for yourself, but it's a suggestion. This week I have my friend and colleague John, who I've had the pleasure of working with alongside for many years. And we're going to continue that conversation with the active shooter, but before we do, I'd like to ask John, like I ask all my guests, what's the reason that you got involved in law enforcement?
Money.
Okay.
I lost my job. I grew up always wanting to be an aircraft mechanic and went to school for it. It actually came true in 1985 when I got hired by Eastern Airlines. And then by 1989, I believe, is when the big strike started. So that whole year we were walking the picket line. I became friends with some people who were in law enforcement and kind of got interested in it, did some ride-alongs, and the sheriff's office made a big push to hire Eastern Airlines people that were looking for jobs, and I got hired in 1989, in October of 1989, to work in the jail for a few years.
Okay, 1989. I met you back in 2004 at the airport, I believe.
That's right.
We started working together.
That's right.
And what do you enjoy the most about the job?
Honestly, I like the position I'm in now. I like being a detective. I like solving the crimes. And I like looking for people. It's, for lack of any other term, it's the thrill of the hunt. And I know that there's a famous Hemingway quote, which if you asked me to say it verbatim, I wouldn't be able to do it. But it's something to do with
The Hunting of Men?
Exactly.
Yeah, I know the quote too, but I can't repeat it either. So in 2004, I met you at the airport. Shortly after I met you, I had gone into the detective bureau.
Right.
And I remember it was a couple of years later. I believe there was an opening, and I remember the sergeant at the time asked me who I would recommend for the position, and you immediately came into my mind because of your tenacity. Okay, you're always very tenacious. Sometimes you're a little too tenacious.
I don't know if it's that, but I think I resisted you for a little while, didn't I?
Yes, you did. You didn't want to do it. You were happy doing what you were doing, and
I actually think I made you guys' jobs a little bit easier because I went above and beyond probably what I should have investigated while on the road.
you did. You may have given us a little more work than we actually wanted.
I remember there was a Christmas Eve, I think, at the garage.
Yeah, we'll talk about that another time. I remember that. What do you dislike about the job the most?
The lack of what I perceive to be respect from the people that are so-called victims. These people at the airport, they make reports. You attempt to contact them and leave messages, and they never call you back. And it gets to be annoying after a while because they feel it's important to make the report. They want something to happen with it, and they want you to work miracles, but miracles are only on TV, and a lot of times if they don't even respond back to you, it's very frustrating. It's why make the report if you don't want any help.
So in other words, you feel like you're chasing after people to follow up when
Exactly.
they're actually getting back to you if they want results done.
Exactly.
What we're going to do is we're going to talk about the active shooter situation. You said you and I both responded to the airport shooting back in 2017 after the fact, and we'll get into that after. But what I would like to do is, before we go into that, just talk about some things that have recently been in the news. Sadly, the New York City Police Department just experienced another loss. They had another officer commit suicide. He was number 9. He was the second in as many days. It's just crazy what's going on there. Nationwide, there have been 116 police suicides opposed to the 73 line of duty deaths. And it's bad enough when we have outside forces that are trying to kill us, but we're killing ourselves.
Right.
And
right.
it almost seems like there's an epidemic going on in New York, and it's got to stop. I implore the people of the NYPD or all law enforcement officers, if you see a change in somebody that you work with, all of a sudden they become withdrawn or despondent, a change in somebody who's usually jovial and happy and outgoing, you see that change, ask a question. What's going on?
Right.
There are signs that we may see that we ignore, we're afraid to get involved, but we have to.
Yeah, absolutely. Your mental health is just as important as anything else, and there's no shame in seeking help. And personally, if somebody told me they were seeking help, I wouldn't think any less of that person. I would have no problem with that. In fact, I'd be happy. It's making the person well to do the job.
No, it's horrible. Recently I experienced it with somebody that I worked with within the last year, and it was a shocker. There were absolutely no telltale signs that I had seen or anybody that I spoke to. Nobody saw any change in the demeanor or any change in anything. And when we found out, I remember I just finished up work, and I got a call from one of the bosses at home to tell me about the suicide, and I was shocked. It was just really shocking. There's help out there. Suicide, like they say, suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary situation. And there are agencies out there to help you, and you don't have to fear the repercussions from the job. One organization in particular is PAPA. They can be reached at 888-267-7267. And it's toll-free. The lines are manned 24/7. Yesterday in the news, we had 6 Philadelphia police officers who were shot and wounded while executing a narcotics warrant. And thank God, nobody was killed. I mean, that in itself was a miracle. That was absolutely amazing.
I don't know if you saw the videos that I saw earlier today of the officers responding were handling that particular incident, they were being taunted and challenged to physical fights.
It was absolutely disgusting. You have these officers that are going out there and they're putting their lives on their line to save the people in the neighborhood, to evacuate them and get them to safety. And you're right, after the fact, they were getting taunted and things were thrown. I saw one officer was shot from behind by a woman. And,
Right.
Yeah, there's got to be outrage. There's got to be more outrage than the politicians and everybody is showing. It's unacceptable. It's totally unacceptable.
Yeah, times have definitely changed, my friend.
Absolutely. And, one of the most dangerous things they can do is serving that warrant. You
Right.
take all the precautions. They had a SWAT team there, but you don't know what's on the other side of that door.
Right.
You really don't. And things can change in a heartbeat.
It's one of the most dangerous things we do.
Yeah, that, domestic violence, car stops, those are the unknowns. It's a different story when you're responding to a robbery in progress or shots fired. You kind of anticipate. Mentally you're a little prepared. You know what you're getting yourself into.
Right.
But when you're serving that warrant and you don't know what's on the other side.
Yeah, it's hit or miss every time you go to one of these calls.
Yeah. Another thing that was recently in the news, was in the New York Post. The New York City Police Department is conducting an internal investigation. There was a female officer that's alleging that over a period of years, about 5 years, she's been the victim of rape, sexual molestation by her co-workers. Allegedly, they plied her with opioids, got her addicted, and threatened to expose her if she didn't meet with her sexual demands. I kind of have a hard time with this one. I'm not saying it didn't happen. It definitely has to be investigated. But you're a police officer. You have a weapon. I don't get it.
No, I agree with you. It just seems like it went on too long, too many people involved that other people should have known about it. It just, I don't know why she would do it. I'm not saying it didn't happen like you said, but there's just, I can't put my finger on it, but there is something that just doesn't sound right about it.
No, so allegedly it went on for 5 years. She allegedly reported it, and it was swept under the carpet. She's alleging that was EMTs involved, other police officers. And the kicker is there was a $90 million lawsuit that's being dropped on the city. And part of the story, it mentions that she even paid with the hotel with her own credit card. And she suffered bruises. And it just doesn't sound right. Just doesn't sound right. But in this job, I've learned one thing. Anything is possible in this job. I remember years ago back in New York, we had the incident with Abner Louima. It was the plunger case. And when I first heard that story, I was like, no way did that happen. I thought it was impossible. Sadly enough, it was very true. It was very true, and the officer was sentenced to 30 years in prison.
As he should have been.
Rightfully so.
Yep.
Yeah. On the lighter side, in Kansas City, Missouri, the police reported that a man was trying to elude police, and they were searching vainly for him. They couldn't find him, but he was betrayed by his own butt.
I heard about this too.
Yeah. At some point, I guess he passed gas in a very loud fart.
Broke wind.
Broke wind, and they were able to catch him with that way. It they said the officers sniffed him out from where he was hiding, but they didn't release his identity. And the funny thing is, nearby Clay County's office got wind of the arrest.
Right.
And they turned it into a cautionary tale advising anybody who is thinking about committing any crimes, they may want to watch their diet and not eat any beans or anything that's gassy.
No need for a canine in that situation.
No, absolutely not. You can either look for the noise or follow the scent.
Yeah.
Also recently in Massachusetts, I guess there was a heat wave, and they were talking to the criminals, asking them to stay inside. It was too hot to commit crimes. Temperatures were hitting 102 degrees, and the heat index, it was through the roof. Made it feel like it was 115 degrees, and they said anybody committing crimes, their level would come up to like henchman level. You'd have to be really out of your mind to do something like that.
Yeah, it's been hot.
Yeah, it's been hot there. Also in Montgomery, Texas, the same thing. They were advising would-be criminals to stay inside because of the heat. Read a book, build a blanket, fort blanket, go see the Lion King movie. Just
do something useful for a change.
Yeah, absolutely. Get out of the heat. Give everybody a break. John, getting back to the active shooter scenarios. When I responded to the airport. It was after the fact. The shooter was already in custody. When I first got there, I was originally assigned to a traffic post just to try to help with the traffic. And eventually I made my way into the terminal and did what detectives do. I immediately canvassed the area for witnesses, took statements. And I remember there was a young man who was in the bathroom. And somebody told me this guy in there who had been shot. When I went to the bathroom, young guy, he was in his 20s. He had a backpack on. He was actually shot in the back, in the backpack, and he had a laptop in there. And the round, when it hit the backpack, it gouged the side of the laptop, and it just wasn't his day. You know, I said to him, "This is your lucky day. You may want to go play lotto."
Yeah,
You know,
right.
it was,
Definitely. Yeah, I got tasked with, I think you brought it up last week or the week before with, I wasn't there that day either, but I got there about 45 minutes after it happened. And where me and you used to work in our office, we had that television screen that's shows access to all the cameras within the airport. And when the FBI took over the investigation, I was tasked with helping them preserve 12 hours from 12 p.m. till midnight, 12 hours of video from each individual camera within the entire airport, which was probably over, I would guess, 3,000 cameras. And just, you know, you really didn't, you saw the guy take the gun out of his belt, and he did the first couple of shots, but the difficult thing was watching afterwards when we had to go through it and try to piece together what happened, and we could move the camera. And I remember that just before the shooting, this couple was coming, they flew in on vacation to celebrate the husband's 90th birthday for a cruise. And I remember the lady's name. Her name was Olga, and she was being helped in a wheelchair by a skycap. Her husband was walking next to her, and you know, you see her happy, smiling. There's not a care in the world on their faces. And then you happen to glance up at the timestamp on the video, and you realize the woman really literally has 30 seconds left in her life. And you know, that's one of the things that bothers me the most, is seeing these people all happy and not a care in the world. And we've both seen bodies, we've both seen crime scenes. You know, body is a body.
right.
Crime scenes are bad, you know, no matter what they are, but you get used to them. But this was something different, where I had to keep replaying it over and over for what we were doing. But then eventually it was like it just got burned into my mind, and it bothered me, still bothers me to this day. And I can't help but think about it every day, because my office is still in that terminal, yards from where the shooting occurred. So it's a difficult thing.
Yeah.
Something that people don't see.
No, they don't. You know, and I can hear the emotion in your voice.
Yeah.
As you're talking, and you know, you go to a scene, like you said, we've all seen the bodies, and you almost become robotic. You know what has to be done, and you do it. You become robotic, and you try to be as compassionate as possible. And I remember at the airport too, while I was doing some of the interviews, there was a woman there, and husband was 62. They also flew in for a cruise, and while they were staying there, he was shot and killed. And one of the deputies put me in touch with her, and I didn't know what to say to her. You know, what do you say? And I didn't want her to have to keep repeating her story, so I had to have a seat. You know, I had to take a seat. I said, listen, you know, relax. If you need anything at all, just call me. Other detectives will get in touch with you. There's no need for her to keep repeating and repeating. It's sad, but you know, you become callous or you become cold, but it's a job that you have to do, and you have to do A, B, C, and D. We're going to take a break, and we'll come back. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation. Again, if you'd like to be part of the podcast, get in on the conversation, make a comment, or share a story, give us a call toll-free at 888-511-COPS. That's 888-511-COPS. We'll be back soon.
Hi. Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably gonna turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right.
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him. Hi, I'm a warning sign. I let people know when they're... Oh, gotta go.
I'll be right back.
Hi.
To talk to our hosts, call the podcast studio at area code 954-210-5413. That's 954-210-5413.
Welcome back. I'm here with my guest John, co-worker and friend. We're talking about the active shooters and especially what happened at the airport. You know, John, I remember while I was in the terminal, all of a sudden a call came over 911 that there was somebody in the concourse on the second floor in Delta that needed medical attention. And myself and some other officers, we responded along with fire rescue. And the terminal had already been cleared, but now we had to go back in and redo it. And it was a very eerie feeling. It was very surreal. So I remember when we got into the terminal, there were bags, there was luggage strewn all over the place. There were tables that had food, there were drinks that were knocked over, there were pocketbooks left behind. And when you looked at it, you could just visualize the panic and the stampede of the people trying to get out of there.
Not only, what you saw, but I saw a lot more on the surveillance video because, as you know, there was false reports of gunshots in different terminals, which it was just like a domino effect. People would run and, they'd see the people running and they don't know what's going on, but they see people running, so they're going to run and do the same thing. And it was just like once I believe it was Terminal 3 was the next terminal to dump after the reports, and then it went to Terminal 1.
And then it went to Terminal
the people
4.
running from Terminal 3 ran towards 4, and when 4 saw that, they all ran. And, some of the things I saw in the video, people and humanity, it was just unbelievable.
And I want to touch on that because sadly, as human nature is, there were people who took advantage of the situation.
Right. Yep.
Okay, and
Yes.
They saw it as an opportunity to steal. And I know there were numerous theft reports that were taken from pocketbooks. Things was taken from pocketbooks, missing luggage, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I think we got kind of lucky with that because if I remember correctly, it was mainly Terminal 2 that got hit.
Mm-hmm.
And we worked on that for a few days afterwards, and we were able to identify the whole group of airport workers that did take advantage of the situation, and they were all justly charged or correctly charged. It was it was unbelievable to see that. You just see it on the video, and you see them, they're there to try and help people in their jobs every day and work on the planes, whatever they did, and just it was like a free-for-all.
It was almost like when they had the blackouts and the looting took place. It was just an opportunity to steal.
Yeah.
It's just
It's
crazy. And the police response was overwhelming.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a sight to be seen. We had agencies from Miami, I believe, Palm Beach. I mean, God, there had to be at least
Miami-Dade.
Yeah.
Miami-Dade co-workers that Steve from Miami-Dade PD, most of the airport detectives from Miami-Dade came up and said, whatever you need, we're here for you. There was a lot of, there was no way in and out of the airport. A lot of the SWAT teams actually had to jog for a few miles to get into the airport.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe the Miami SWAT team even came by helicopter.
I don't remember that.
If I'm not mistaken, who knows? Maybe I'm making it up.
There was so many things that happened that day, and I remember when I was in my office and I was doing my work, and you know, you have your radio on, and then you hear all these what turned out to be the false reports of more shooters and stuff.
Well, I was there, and it's
It,
funny.
it raises the hair on the back of your head.
Well, it did, and I'll tell you especially why. Because it's one thing when a call comes in over at 911, shots fired.
Right.
Okay, a lot of times it's unfounded. But I remember being in the terminal, and it actually came over the radio from one of the police officers. There were several reports of shots fired. So at that point, you really don't know what's going on. Is there more than one shooter?
Exactly.
Is this a terrorist? We didn't
A coordinated attack.
We didn't know what it was, but there were a couple of incidents with shots fired. So it was. But the nice thing to see was how the law enforcement community, different agencies, different jurisdictions, we came together as one. And I'm talking about police departments, sheriff's departments, customs, DEA, FBI, anybody who was in the area. You had guys that heard what was going on. I think even responded. They were off duty
Yeah.
and suited up.
I was off duty.
Okay, perfect example.
I was off duty, and I got there after everything, like 45 minutes after the first shooting. But when I heard that radio start going with more reports of shooters, I'm not gonna lie, I was scared and worried. So I ran back out to my trunk, and I grabbed my tactical vest, my gear, my rifle, and I figured we're gonna make our last stand here in this office where the actual suspect was. We didn't know if they were actually trying to come to get him or what was going on. So it was just pretty chaotic.
And, you know, when the shots came out, it's when I responded from where I was, and I had my radio off at the time. I was taking a tape statement from somebody who was the victim of a crime. And my radio was off, and as I was finishing up the statement, all of a sudden I heard all the sirens taking off from where I was. And I turned on my radio, and that's when you could hear the chaos of what happened. I too immediately jumped in my car. I didn't have time to put on my vest. I just jumped into my car and I went to the airport. And where I was, I knew the shooter was already taken into custody and started doing the interview. So I felt relatively safe until I heard shots fired. And my vest at the time was in the trunk of my car, which is out front. I was like, okay, I got to get my vest. And the first opportunity I had, I threw it on. And I remember we were driving. They thought they had somebody near Terminal 1 in the bushes. I mean, it was crazy. It was mayhem.
They thought they had somebody, I don't know how this information came to Fort Lauderdale, but supposedly there was a male that fit a certain description that possibly had explosives in a backpack.
Right.
And they found him. I think they actually detonated the bag. It turned out to be nothing. But they dedicated. I mean, they blew up the bag next to the train tracks just east of the airport. And yeah, but man, you would not believe the things that I saw in the video where, you know, it's such a breakdown of humanity and people running over elderly people, knocking over handicapped people in chairs, not even bothering to help children. And you know, these were people tasked in positions where that's what they're supposed to be doing. I understand, you know, it's a different situation. You're afraid for your life, but there has to be some sort of basic humanity there. I saw people jumping off open jet bridges, going down the baggage belts. It was one of the most unbelievable situations that I've ever been involved.
It's almost every man for himself.
Exactly.
You know, we all know the aftermath of the active shooters. You know, things. What, if anything, can we do to prevent it? You know, is there any way to prevent it? I mean, if somebody's hell bent on doing it, it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
But you know, what precautions do you think the public can take?
Well, it's the typical know your surroundings, know where you're at, have a plan, have an escape route. If you carry and you have a concealed weapon permit, all the better. You know, I wouldn't go suggest going out and engaging the threat, but I would, you know, if you're not a law enforcement officer, I would definitely families first. You know, families first. Get them safe somewhere and protect your family is what I'd say. If you can't run and get out of there, well, then the next step is to hide. And the very last and the thing you really don't want to do is fight.
Absolutely. You know, like you said, know your surroundings. Have a plan. Have a predetermined meeting place. If you get separated by your family members, you know, be aware of your surroundings. The same thing. If something looks out of place, if you see something that just doesn't look right, you know, they say something, say something. It's so important today.
Yeah, even have a code word for just your family that your family knows. If you're out in a mall or movie theater, wherever you are, and you pick up on something being a law enforcement officer, just say that code word to your family. Everybody knows, okay, that's it, not a joke. Let's get up and go no matter what.
Absolutely. What people have to start doing is almost like thinking like police.
Right.
Think like
Exactly.
If you go someplace, if you're in a restaurant, know where the exits are.
Exactly.
Try not to sit with your back to the door so you can see what's coming in. If you see somebody on a hot day and they're dressed abnormally, a long coat, that's a warning sign.
Unfortunately, it seems like there's a fashion trend that I see down here too. As hot as it is, you see all these kids walking around with these hoodies, and I just don't know how they do it.
Hey guys out there, this is a pretty important topic. If anybody's got any comments or questions, or you want to join in the conversation, give us a call, 888-511-COPS. You can also instant message the show on Facebook as well. But we'd love to hear from you, your comments, any suggestions, any stories that you want to share. Now's the time to do it. John, the thing is, like you said, 3 things you have to do is run, hide, and fight. If you can get out of there, I mean run. Know your surroundings. And the thing is, too, know the difference between cover and concealment.
Exactly, yeah. Most people don't know that. Concealment is what it is, just basically hiding. It could be concealing yourself behind curtains, but curtains aren't going to stop a bullet. And that's basically the difference between cover and concealment. Concealment is a big piece of concrete, steel, an engine block, something that you can crouch down, make yourself as small as possible, and hide behind, and hopefully you don't get hit.
Right, and the cover would be get behind something solid.
Exactly.
Something
That's what I was trying to say.
Impenetrable. Something that, they always tell us to get behind an engine block if you can.
Right.
If you're going to use the car for cover. But you have to know a evacuation route and put as much distance between you and the shooter as possible. And if you can't run, like you said, hide. And find a room, lock the door, barricade it, right?
Yep.
Shut the lights. Turn your cell phones off.
Yeah.
Not off, but silent them and put them on vibrate. Even just silence them where there is no vibration.
Just, don't answer the phones. Don't, let them ring. Let them ring all day. Let them vibrate all day. As long as you're alive, you'll be able to talk to these people later on. And you know what? You can go online now. There's so many ingenious things, products that would, if you work in an office that has a door that opens one way or another, there are these, for lack of any other term, clamp type things that you can buy, and they're inexpensive. And if you know something's happening, you just slip it over, I forgot what they call the thing at the top of one of those automatic doors that opens and closes, but it locks it, and it's pretty indestructible. You can't really get into a room. It locks it.
I've seen them. Yeah. And as a last resort, fight.
Yeah.
And use anything you can as a weapon, no matter what. And when you fight, it's got to be aggressive.
Oh, yeah. It's got to be the fight of your life. Like, you're working to save your life or somebody else's, and it's not going to be me. It's going to be that person, and you do whatever you can. And pick up, whether it's a garbage can or even a computer, a monitor, something like that.
Fire extinguisher.
Fire extinguisher is a perfect example, yeah. Fire extinguisher is a perfect example.
Absolutely, and you have to commit to your actions.
Exactly. If you're going to do it and you commit to it, you got to follow through with it. Because if you waver as you start to do it, it's not going to work out well.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and what people have to realize, when law enforcement actually does respond, their initial response is going to be to the shooter.
Exactly.
Okay, and the mission is to stop it, to neutralize it.
Yeah. Yep. No, it's people should know that also. What our role is, and hopefully they understand that the first guy's coming in. As long as the suspect is still shooting, the first officers that are responding they're literally walking into hell, and they're simply going in there to stop the shooter. And whatever they see on the ground, wounded people calling out to them, people bleeding in very poor condition, we just can't stop them. We just have to stop to help them. We have to go and engage the shooter and kill the shooter, And that's the primary mission. And then once we confirm that the shooter or shooters are down, then we can start triaging and treating, the most wounded people.
Yeah, absolutely. People have to realize too when the police response is there, and actually make sure you have nothing in your hands. Keep your hands up,
Right.
and follow all instructions
Yes.
of police officers, because they don't know who you are. If you're
Exactly.
part of the situation, were you an active participant, or are you a victim?
Look, Nicholas Cruz ran out and blended in with the kids, even though everybody knew that he was, had some mental issues. He still ran out and blended in with the kids, even after committing the shooting in Stoneman Douglas. So that's why we get there. We don't know who anybody is. You just comply. And it's like everything else in this world. Comply. There's a time later on down the road that you can address it if you don't feel you are properly treated, or you got a ticket or something else. The easiest thing is to comply, because that's all we want you to do. It's an extremely dangerous situation. You walk up to a car at night, you don't know what's in the car, and people obviously don't like getting tickets, but the easiest thing to make sure everything happens right and everybody goes home at the end of the night is just comply. It's as simple as that. You may not like the situation, but comply. It's for safety for you and the officer.
For everybody.
Yeah.
And I preach that, and I so wholeheartedly believe that if you comply, everybody's going to be okay. Nobody should get hurt.
Exactly. And this, there's one thing I want to say too. I'm finishing my 30th year now. You've got 35. Has there ever been a time when you woke up, or friends, that worked with you, and I have never ever ever heard of anybody wanting to get up as a law enforcement officer that morning with the intent to shoot anybody.
No, absolutely not.
And people get this false opinion out there in the news, and the news blows it up, and it doesn't happen like that. Yeah, there's bad eggs all over the place, but no cop gets up in the morning with the intention of killing anybody.
No, and what people don't realize too is the effects that it has on some of these officers.
Oh, yeah.
Is forever.
Yeah, exactly. It's not an easy thing. You have to be prepared to take somebody's life.
Absolutely. And there have been incidents in the past, and it's happened all over the place, where a toy gun, a fake gun that looked like a real gun, and the officer was forced to make a decision. Am I going home? Am I going to wait to be shot to determine whether or not that's a real gun or not?
No, that happened to me. I stopped a kid, and I wasn't even working. I saw a kid in my complex. He was riding a skateboard, and he kept pulling this gun in and out of his pants. And I stopped. I snuck up behind him and basically tackled him and pulled it out, and determined that it was a BB or pellet gun. And I wasn't happy with him. I took him up to his mom and dad and explained, and hopefully that was the end of it. But an average officer driving by and seeing this,
could have ended very differently.
would have ended very differently, very fast too.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's changed now. The guns, where they try to make them, they put the red cap on the end, so it looks like people, oh well, it's a fake gun. But you have
Right.
these guys that go out and they paint.
Right.
They paint them red, or they paint them green.
Right.
There was somebody who came up. We were all familiar with the Super Soaker water guns, and there was somebody who had a shotgun. It was a sawed-off shotgun, but they kind of built these plastic pieces around it to make it look like a water gun. And God help the whatever this guy was intent on doing. If you saw, well, it's a toy.
I also resent these guys, these so-called First Amendment rights people that try to go out and antagonize the police, and they make a big show of it with the camera, and it's it just makes our job harder. It distracts us from helping other people, and it really is, to me, they're making fools of themselves.
Yeah, and it makes our job that much harder.
Exactly.
You get these people say, "Oh, you don't have to comply with. You don't have to show them your ID.
Right.
You don't have to do this."
Right.
The sovereign citizens.
Yeah.
I haven't had any experience with them.
We have at the airport.
Have you?
They'll show up at the airport. They'll go to, when you get on the TSA line, You go up to the TSA officer and you're asked for your boarding pass and ID, and they'll just give their boarding pass, and they say, well, we're not required to give a ID. I'm a sovereign citizen. And it goes back and forth for a little bit, but most of the time they're just turned away and denied boarding their flight and going through the checkpoint.
So, have you had any personal experiences with any of the sovereign citizens?
Only at the airport.
Okay.
Only at the airport.
It's amazing. Hey, you know, you don't have to fly.
Yeah.
You can tell me, hey, you don't want to comply, you don't have to fly.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
Take a bus.
You know, it's so funny how people have forgotten 9/11, and I don't know, it's almost 20 years now, I guess. And I'm amazed at the people at the airport that are still upset with the searches that they have to go through, and it's for them. It's for their safety. It's not something that we ever wanted to do. It was thrust upon us.
You know, and it's funny that you mention it too. And I used to love to hear it all the time. Oh, do I look like a terrorist? Oh, she's 80 years old. Does she look like a terrorist? You tell me what does a terrorist look like?
Anybody.
Yeah, and anybody and everybody. Who's a terrorist? Anybody who's intent on doing something. And unfortunately, there are these different groups, and children. You know, when they make martyrs out of their kids, where they strap the explosive and they blow, and they're proud that my son is a martyr, and
Right.
he's going to get all these virgins when he gets to heaven,
And the terror groups will financially compensate them, too, for doing it.
it's absolutely amazing.
Yep. Yep.
All right, we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss scams, give you some of the recent scams that are happening, and try to help you prevent becoming a victim of one. If you want to get on the conversation, again, a comment, a call, or a story, give us a call at 888-511-COPS. That's 888-511-2677. And you can also instant message us on the Facebook page as well. We'll see you shortly.
I surrender, I surrender.
All right, pal. Get ready for the day, buddy.
Hey, Dad. Hey, Dad. Do we have a gun?
What's that?
Do we have a gun?
Why do you ask that, kiddo?
Can I play with it?
No, absolutely not. It's not a toy. You know that.
Do I? I bet it looks like one.
Yeah, well, it's not. Anyway, I need it to protect you, your sister, and Mom.
From what?
From bad guys, like on TV.
But what about the 8 kids who get shot every day by mistake? Their daddies probably thought they were safe too.
Where'd you hear that?
TV.
Yeah, well, maybe we don't believe everything we hear on TV.
Where do you keep it?
It's hidden.
I bet it's on the top shelf of the closet, under your sweatshirts. Is it loaded?
It's not. I keep the
In
bullets.
the boots with the red laces, and the chest beside the bed? I haven't found them yet, but I'm sure I can. You always told me to be curious. Remember when I found my Christmas gift? I'm a good climber, you know.
No, that's not what I meant. Look, I need to be ready if someone breaks in.
What about when it's just me and Mom? You taught me to be brave. I could use the gun to protect her.
No, Justin, I promise. I'll teach you how to handle a gun when you're old enough.
And what if I don't make it to old enough? I could get bullied and decide it's too much for me. It would be so easy with our gun.
Our gun? No, buddy. My gun.
But it is our gun, in our home. Happens all the time.
I'll make sure that doesn't happen. I'm always here for you.
But Dad, you're not always here.
Today, with seasonal temperatures, we should reach our normal high of about 82 degrees by this afternoon. Clear skies tonight with a low near 70. Increasing cloudiness tomorrow, sticky and humid with a high of 36. With the winds up to
talk to our hosts? Call the podcast studio at area code 954-210-5413. That's 954-210-5413.
And welcome back to Cobservations. John, we're going to talk about scams, but another thing that happens, a lot of people are victims of themselves. A lot of people, a lot of times what they'll do is if they're going to the gym or they're going someplace, well, especially the gym, a lot of times they want to bring their pocketbooks. The women don't want to bring their pocketbooks into the gym, and they'll leave it in the trunk. And a lot of these criminals today, they know that a lot of women don't want to bring their pocketbooks in. So what they'll do is they'll break into the vehicle, pop the trunk, and then take possession of the pocketbook. Obviously, the credit cards and driver's licenses.
Yeah, it's not only the park. I don't know how long law enforcement agencies have been preaching this stuff. They keep preaching it and telling people, yet get tons and tons of these calls of burglaries to a vehicle where a purse was taken and ID was eventually used down the road. It's the parks. It's the dropping the kids off at the daycare, the shopping malls, the supermarkets. It's basically, they know how long somebody's going to be when they go in there. Even, graveside services at funerals. I've seen that too. I worked a case where a guy broke into cars and had ID that was removed from people that were attending a funeral service. And that lady's cards got compromised, and they were using her cards down the road. Luckily, we worked on that one pretty hard for a while, and we got everybody, the main players, locked up, and they were locked up for at least 8 years. I think some of them are still in prison.
Another big thing that there was the gas stations.
Oh, yeah.
And women, in particular, are most of the victims in this when they're pumping gas. What they'll do is they leave the car doors open, they're pumping gas, and these guys have perfected it. They'll pull up alongside the vehicle, very carefully open up the door, grab the pocketbook, and take off. And by the time the woman's, done pumping the gas, they're gone.
Yeah, and speaking of pumping gas, it's a scam also. These credit card readers that they go and they attach to the real reader, and it looks like a real reader when you put your card in, but it's really capturing the credit card number and all the information that's on that card, and it's either wirelessly transmitted to somebody sitting, nearby, or it's stored, and they come back and get it. And plus, I do it religiously. Is when I go to use my card at an ATM or a place where you can use a credit card, I always grab a hold of the slot
To make sure it's secure.
Yeah, to make sure it's secure. People might think I'm crazy the way I'm pulling on it and this and that, but
Well, you're always pulling on it, but I don't know about the credit card reader. So.
Yeah, but not only, but I wow, now you screwed me up. But anyway, but you do check it to make sure it's secure. It's not something that shouldn't be there. But also, even if you find that nothing's there, I always cover my PIN number
In case there are cameras.
Yeah.
And I've actually taken classes on this, and these guys are so good that they can actually hook it up within a minute.
Oh yeah.
They are so fast.
Yeah.
And like you said, wirelessly they do it too. And there are things too. People go through these drive-throughs, whether it's a fast food restaurant, and I'm always leery of that, handing them my card, because if I can't see what they're doing, I'm just very leery. I'd rather go inside where I can actually see them swiping the card.
We've actually had that at the airport with, I think, some sky caps outside. Occasionally, it's not anything that's rampant. It's very rare, as a matter of fact. But you go in there and you pay for your, a lot of airlines charge you to, your baggage fees. So you give the guy your card, and there's been very few, I'd say less than 5, where we've had cases where we've determined that credit cards were compromised.
Well, I remember when I was at the airport, there was a guy, and what he was doing is these girls were making minimum wage, and he offered them $50 for every credit card that they swiped.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a pretty big case. I believe the Secret Service got involved in it, and it runs rampant. It's it happens everywhere. My son was actually a victim one time at the airport. He was flying out from the airport, and when he checked his card while he was still in the airport, he had purchased something, and within that time frame, the card was used in Georgia.
Yeah.
So they are so advanced.
Fast. very fast. In fact, you sent me that link for the Equifax,
Right there.
the data breach.
Yeah, I'm going to get into
and
that.
I checked my name, and my name was in there. My information was compromised, so I followed the instructions on that, and
Yeah, all right, and then, well, that's perfect lead. And recently there was a, security breach in Equifax, and people to see if you were affected. There's a website you can go to. It's ftc.gov/Equifax, and you'll find out if your information was compromised. And that happened back in September of 2017. And when you go to that website, if it's determined that you were a victim, there are also benefits that you can give. I believe they'll pay you up to $125, but that's split by God knows how many people. So
Right.
you may end up with a dollar, or 50 cents. But they'll also offer you, I believe, a year of free monitoring service.
right. And you know what? You can get free monitoring service through a lot of your credit cards. I think even AAA does it now. I happen to pay for, there's two big ones. I don't know if we're allowed to mention them or not.
Yeah, go ahead.
But the one I use is Identity Guard,
Okay.
and I'll tell you, I've had some situations where they do quite credit inquiries on my account, and within seconds I get texts and emails saying, "Hey, is this legitimate?" And they can shut it down quick. And I know my information's out there, but for some reason it's not being used for criminal activity.
Right,
So
and some banks are better than others. I know.
Yes.
I'll get notified by my bank if they see something suspicious or
Right.
a certain amount of charges. And if I'm not in my home state, I'll get a text message. They want to verify it, make sure it's me. So that's pretty good. But there are also already fake websites out there
Yes.
with this Equifax thing. So people,
Right.
you really got to be careful and go to the FTC's page at ftc.gov/Equifax. And remember, you'll never have to pay to file a claim with
Right.
them. So if people are charging, it's most certainly it's a scam.
any big company that you got those companies that call you and they prey on the elderly, and there's no company like the IRS or anybody that's going to call you and ask for your personal information over the telephone, and they're not going to ask for your birthday. They're not going to ask for your social security number. If they're doing that, it's a scam. Hang up right away, immediately, and contact the appropriate authorities. You have that. You have people calling and saying they're from Apple technical support or Apple or
Windows,
Windows,
Microsoft.
Microsoft Windows is the big one now, and they're just trying to, it's like phishing.
Absolutely.
They're going to be out there for hours and hours and hours, still doing the same thing, and until they get the fish they want.
Absolutely, they're playing the odds. It's funny. I had received a phone call on my work cell phone, okay, and it was somebody telling me that it was the IRS and that my information, there was some fraudulent activity, and I need to call them back immediately. It went to my voicemail. I need to call them back immediately. So, I played the message. I said, this should be so fun. So for shits and giggles, I called up, and I'm speaking to somebody with a heavy accent. He's telling me that my information has been compromised, and I need to verify it. I said, well, you called me. You should be able to verify it. Oh, and they were, no. We need you to verify it to make sure that we have the right information. And at that point, I identified myself, and the phone was hung up immediately.
Yeah.
It was click.
There are also, I know that the big phone companies are starting to try to crack down on it now. And I also, like I said, I'm not trying to endorse any products here, but I downloaded an app called RoboKiller.
Okay.
And it is, I would say, 95% effective in stopping these phony calls. And it's all built up on a database that other users like me would enter and say, hey, this is a bad number. It goes on a list.
Well, here's what happens too, and people have to realize people are allowed, they can spoof numbers now.
Right, exactly.
Okay, and I get it all the time. They'll call you from a number that's similar to yours, so right away you're thinking, oh, it must be somebody I know. And it's not. It's usually some recording. Then if you go to call it back, the number is never good, but they
Right.
spoof them, and half of these numbers don't even exist.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
So-
The thing I like about RoboKiller, though, the funny thing is that If they don't leave a message, they don't leave a message. They're not actually leaving a message on the Apple message part of your iPhone, but they're leaving a message within the RoboKiller message. So it's funny because it's comedic. Sometimes the people will listen to what's going on. They're called bots, and I have a series of different bots. And if somebody calls me, it's a scam. They end up starting to engage with the bot, and it actually records the whole conversation. It's actually pretty funny.
It's got to be.
Yeah.
Just want to go back to the IRS thing too, because the IRS will not call you up to tell you there's a problem. They'll notify you by mail, but
Right.
recently too, they're getting smart with that too. They've been sending out phony letters. These people are getting letters that to the average person look 100% legitimate. So you got to really be careful with that, folks. Another thing that's out there's a thing called the one-ring scam. And what happens is a number will call you. It'll be a number that you don't recognize. It'll ring once. And a lot of people, what they'll do is automatically, for whatever reason, they think it's an important call, and they'll call back. And they're actually getting told. They're getting charged for it, and the charges are pretty high. So, if you don't recognize a number, don't answer it, and let them leave a voicemail. My wife yells at me all the time, but for some reason I can't help myself.
Yeah.
I usually answer these calls.
You know what? The other thing is, too, are these, they call them ransomware attacks.
Right.
And it usually happens, you'll get an email that you think is legit. And once you click on something within that email, your computer system is basically held hostage, so you won't have any access to anything. And they'll contact you and tell you how much it's going to cost you to get the computer unlocked. And if you've read the news lately, a lot of big corporations and government agencies, I think Delray or someone up in Palm Beach got hit like that. It shut down the entire system, and rather than,
That's right. They paid a ransom.
they pay ransoms, yeah.
That's
They pay
right.
ransoms. It's usually originating out of Russia.
Okay.
And it just keeps happening. It keeps happening. And if you see an email that looks like an email from your bank or something like that, you can always just take your the little arrow or mouse pointer or whatever it is and hover it over the person that sent or the email name of the person that sent it to you, and you can most of the time tell that it's not like associated with if you've got a Macy's. It's not from Macy's. It's something totally.
If you drop it down, you can see the rest of the address, the email.
That's
address.
all you have to do, and you're not really hurting anything. But don't ever just delete it. Send it to your spam. Whatever you got to do, it'll make your life miserable if you ever open up one of those things.
Absolutely. Another great scam is these fast credit repair companies.
Yes.
There is no fix for easy fix or fast fix.
Pay your bills.
Pay your bills. Get a copy of your credit report. Check it out yourself. There may be some places out there that are legitimate, but you really got to be careful with that.
And you should check it out. Take advantage of it. There are also apps too. I use Credit Karma. I can check it anytime I want to see if everything's going okay. That's just the day, the time and the day and age that we live in, that we have to do this stuff. It's not like I remember just getting home from school and running out and riding a bicycle or getting into a snowball fight or something. The times have changed.
Yes, they sure have. And, with changing times, so has law enforcement. They
Yeah.
have to evolve and learn to evolve. And it seems like they're always one step ahead.
I love technology. There's nothing I like more than technology, and I love it. I love getting the latest and greatest, but technology really can be used for bad things too.
Gotcha. Well, guys, it's about that time. And as we always do, what I want to do is honor the memory of Lieutenant Barry Pritchard. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to wrap things up.
I just want to know where all the refreshments are here.
Yeah, we're going to have to speak to them about that.
Okay. Thank you.
Again, if you'd like to call us, it's 888-511-COPS.
Hi. Hoping for a crisp breeze to help keep you alert. Oh, he took a sip of water too. That'll probably help. You were probably gonna turn down the radio too, so you could focus, right?
Probably okay isn't okay.
Right.
If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend.
I think the water line is what really drove it home. I blew on him. Hi, I'm a warning sign. I let people know when they're... Oh, gotta go.
I'll be right back.
Hi.
I surrender.
All right, pal. Get ready for the day, buddy.
Hey, Dad. Hey, Dad. Do we have a gun?
What's that?
Do we have a gun?
Why do you ask that, kiddo?
Can I play with it?
No, absolutely not. It's not a toy. You know that.
Do I? I bet it looks like one.
Yeah, well, it's not. Anyway, I need it to protect you, your sister, and Mom.
From what?
From bad guys, like on TV.
But what about the 8 kids who get shot every day by mistake? Their daddies probably thought they were safe too.
Where'd you hear that?
TV.
Yeah, well, maybe we don't believe everything we hear on TV.
Where do you keep it?
It's hidden.
I bet it's on the top shelf of the closet, under your sweatshirts. Is it loaded?
It's not. I keep the
In
bullets.
the boots with the red laces, in the chest beside the bed. I haven't found them yet, but I'm sure I can. You always told me to be curious. Remember when I found my Christmas gift? I'm a good climber, you know.
No, that's not what I meant. Look, I need to be ready if someone breaks in.
But what about when it's just me and Mom? You taught me to be brave. I could use the gun to protect her.
No, Justin, I promise. I'll teach you how to handle a gun when you're old enough.
And what if I don't make it to old enough? I could get bullied and decide it's too much for me. It would be so easy with our gun.
Our gun? No, buddy. My gun.
But it is our gun, in our home. Happens all the time.
I'll make sure that doesn't happen. I'm always here for you.
But Dad, you're not always here.
Today, with seasonal temperatures, we should reach our normal high of about 82 degrees by this afternoon. Clear skies tonight with a low near 70. Increasing cloudiness tomorrow, sticky and humid with a high of 36. With the winds up to the east.
To talk to our hosts, call the podcast studio at area code 954-210-5413. That's 954-210-5413.
Welcome back to Cobservations. We're going to go back a minute. During the break, I was talking to John. He reminded me of it's almost a comedic incident that happened at the airport. You know, a lot of times people go on cruises, the elderly people go on cruises, and sometimes it's an illness, their illness, or they're terminally ill, and the trip is made as a last hurrah. I remember I was on one cruise, my wife and I, and we were talking to one of the crew members, and we were talking about a cruise line. It was one of these long cruises. It was like a 30-day cruise, and he was telling us a lot of these elderly people sometimes use that cruise as hospice.
Right.
They know it's going to be the last thing. They're not coming back. Everything is taken care of for them. The meals, the cleaning, and it's that last hurrah.
Right.
And on that, you had something that may have been a last hurrah.
Yes, I did. It was one of those times where it was almost like a Weekend at Bernie's type story, and still to this day, I don't know how it happened or why it didn't get caught before it did. But it was one of the months during cruise ship season, and I was working an off-duty detail. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'm on my computer typing up some reports or something, and I have, all of a sudden I look up and I see 3 TSA officers standing around me, just staring at me. And I'm looking at them, they're looking at me, and I'm like, well, what do you need? What's going on? And one of them goes, well, we have a problem. So I close the computer, I stand up, I look, thinking it's a disturbance. I don't see anything. He goes, well, we have a problem. And again, he says, well, I'm like, what's your problem? Tell me what your problem is. He goes, well, we've got a guy in a wheelchair over here trying to go through screening, and we think he's dead. And I looked at him, and I said to him, you got to be effing kidding me. This is not happening. So I get up, I look, and checkpoints were set up a little bit different at that time. And I look from where I'm sitting. I'm only about 30 feet from where the guy is. And sure enough, I look at the holding area, and there's a guy in a wheelchair. He's got his arm in a sling, wearing shorts and a hat on his head, and is kind of looking down. And I start walking over towards him. I saw another lady sitting in the screening, handicap screening, with him. And I get over there, and I start to see, I look him over, and I see that there's already the lividity.
Okay.
And
why don't you explain what lividity is, because some people might not know what it is.
lividity is when the heart stops pumping blood. The blood starts gathering at the lower parts of the body. And I saw that, and I said, well, this isn't good. You know?
It's not a good sign.
Yeah, so I go over, and I walk over to the man, and I check his pulse on his neck, and I go to check his neck, and it's ice cold. And I try to raise his arm a little bit, and he's stiff as a board. And I'm looking, I'm thinking this is a joke. I know that the lady from Delta Airlines wheeled him down ahead of the line, put him in there.
Are you looking for the cameras at this point? Like you're getting punked?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it felt like. And so evidently what happened is they came off a cruise over at Port Everglades. Now, you and I both know that for a body to have lividity and rigor mortis and to be cold,
It's got to be a while.
at least an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. So I'm not sure how this guy got off his ship, went through customs, was transported to the airport, and was taken down by the Delta lady to TSA to be searched.
Well, I'm just guessing here. They probably put him in a wheelchair off the cruise, and then they got a handicapped taxi cab.
Yeah,
for the wheelchair, and just load him into the back.
that's exactly what it was. He did come in a van from like one of the taxi vans, from what I understand. And so I go over there, and now I'm looking at this lady over here, and I'm surrounded by thousands of people, and I have to make it. I know he's dead. I know there's nothing I can do, so I call it out on the radio. I have a signal 7 here at Delta checkpoint. I didn't say a signal 7. I have a 67. Man's not breathing, unconscious.
Right. And 67 is a sick case.
Yeah. So I take the wheelchair, turn it around. I start to go put it in the. At that time, if you could remember, they had those like a dressing room.
Like for a private screening.
Yeah, like for a private screening. And I hear another officer, Joe, get on the radio asking if he needs an AED. And I'm like, well, yeah, bring the AED. Because now everybody's watching us, and they're expecting us to try and
do something
with the guy.
Should have gave him mouth to mouth.
Yeah. So anyway, we open up the curtain, we bring the guy on the floor. Joe gets there with the AED, open the guy's shirt. We're following all the procedures. I take out, Joe starts putting the pads on. I get out the breathing tube.
Right.
And I look at Joe right before he even turns on the machine. I said, Joe, we know he's gone, but we got to go through these motions because people are going to, they're watching us, and something's going to happen, and they're going to say we didn't do anything.
Right.
So we're going through the motions, and I have the mask, and I go to give the first breath to the guy, tilt his head back, go to put the mask on, go to give the first breath. I was chewing a piece of bubble gum, and I forgot about it. And when I blew into there, the tube, the bubble gum went into the tube. Now, it didn't go into the guy. It just sat in the mask, lodged in the mask.
It would have been great if it would have went to his mouth. It would have said you
But I had
choked to death.
turn it over and knock that out. And I remember that, Joe started the AED machine, and it does what it calls its analytical, it analyzes.
Right, analyzes
the body, yeah. So me and Joe are sitting there, and we're waiting for it to analyze, and the machine comes back, no shock advised.
Right.
And I'm like, yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Sorry if I wasn't supposed to curse, but no shit.
Right.
And then Fire rescue came over, and they declared him dead there, and we had to keep him treated like a homicide scene at the checkpoint. But to make a long story short, evidently he was a cancer patient. His wife, that was the lady that was in the room next to him, and to this day, look, I'm not accusing her of anything or whatever. I mean, she was, when I told her husband had passed away, she was pretty much...
She knew. Yes.
Yeah, she was not affected by it. And I said, she told me the story of the last cruise, cancer, and they were just trying to get home to Minneapolis. And I don't know, somebody put the thought in my head that it's cheaper to get a person onto a flight than it is to have a person pass away and ship the body back.
Right in the cargo.
Right.
Hey,
to this day, I don't know if it was true or not, or if she was trying. She had gone through, listen, from the symptoms I saw, there were a lot of symptoms that this guy was dead for quite a while. Right. So maybe she was hoping to get through TSA.
I guess she figured the seat was already paid for, might as well use it.
Exactly. So, look, I don't know how funny of a story that is, but it's when you think about it, it's
I remember
it's one of the craziest ones.
When I first joined the agency and I was doing a detail at the airport, and I'm at the airport, I'm at one of the checkpoints, and I'm standing there, and all of a sudden I hear them yelling, "Leo! Leo!"
I thought you were leading into your bathroom story.
No, I'm not going to go into that one.
Okay.
Leo, they're yelling Leo, and I'm standing there, and I hear people shouting Leo, and I'm wondering, who the hell is Leo? Because, where I came from,
right.
I never heard it before.
Right.
It stands for law enforcement officer, so they're yelling Leo, and finally I caught on, and I looked, and I see this guy, he's looking at me, and he's got something in his hand, and he keeps looking at me and looking down the concourse, and all of a sudden he just throws whatever's in his hand, and it was a packet of cocaine. But, it was funny standing there, Leo. Hey, yeah. Leo. And I'm like, what the hell is Leo?
Yeah, you got to get used to a whole new terminology.
Yeah, I absolutely did.
Me and you, I know there's other stories we have. We don't have time for them now, but there's been a lot of crazy stuff we've seen at the airport, It
was definitely entertaining. And you'll come back.
Absolutely.
And we'll have many more discussions.
Just make sure you have better food.
I will definitely do that. All right, well, it's about time to wrap things up. We had another great discussion, I think, and I want to thank you, Jon, again for coming on. It was a pleasure to have you here. I really appreciate you coming. People don't know what you sacrificed, and I just want to go into that real quick. Your dog, I know you never leave your dog alone, and to come on to be with me, you actually sacrificed, and you actually boarded the dog, and I know you wouldn't do that for just anybody. And I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And you know what? I got to tell you, we know each other since 2004. We've worked together. We were in the detective bureau. And let me tell you something. Rob is one of the greatest cops I've ever worked with in my entire career. And I'm very happy he's doing this. And hopefully people learn what it is like to, live the life and go through the stories and hear everything going on, but there's nobody better than Rob.
Thank you, and like I told Richie when he was on, I'll give you the $5 there for the show. I want to remind everybody you can join our broadcast live every Thursday at 7 on our Copservations Facebook page or YouTube page. If you'd like to appear as a guest on the show, book your appearance request on the Copservations Facebook page or email the show at copservations@yahoo.com for more information. Before we go, the producers want to acknowledge the emails that we've been receiving from some of our viewers regarding our podcast studio. The podcast studio is the newest addition here at Broadcast Beat Studios and are available for rental, so if you or someone you know are interested in broadcasting your podcast from this fantastic facility, give Broadcast Beat Studios a call at 888-511-COPS. That's 888-551-3677. And as we do at the end of every episode, we're here to honor the lives of our fallen brothers and sisters. Tonight, we honor Lieutenant Trey Brennan Pritchard of the Sapulpa Police Department in Oklahoma, whose end of watch was on this day, August 15th in 2015. Lieutenant Pritchard was shot and killed while intervening in a domestic violence incident while off duty at a hotel in Midwest City, Oklahoma. Pritchard had accompanied his cousin to a hotel to retrieve a car that the cousin's son had taken without permission. Lieutenant Pritchard remained in the vehicle as his cousin went into the hotel to speak with the son. While inside the room, the son shot and killed the cousin. Hearing the shot, Lieutenant Pritchard responded to the room and was also fatally shot. 2 subjects were arrested and charged with Lieutenant Pritchard's murder. Lieutenant Pritchard had served with the Sapulpa Police Department for 24 years. He's survived by his wife and 5 children. These are the sacrifices that we make. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in. God bless everybody. Stay safe. And before we go, I promised my son-in-law I would give him a shout-out. Mike, this is for you. I owe you. I want to thank the producers for another fantastic show. Danny, Tony, thank you very much. John, it was a pleasure, and I definitely want to have you back.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll be back next Thursday at 7. Thank you.